Hi, well. Welcome to the Caine Interviews. I'm your host, Shannon Caine. We've got a great show for you today. This is the second time that I've had the pleasure of interviewing Gavin and Yvonne Frost, the founders of the Church and School of Wicca. They've been featured on a lot of popular TV programs, including Donahue, The Tomorrow Show, Larry King Live, and of course, the international hit program you're currently watching. The Frosts have been running the Church and School of Wicca since the 1960s, and they were instrumental in getting Wicca federally recognized in the United States as a legitimate religion, and they've just been highly instrumental in promoting Wicca on an international level. And we'll be talking with them about Wicca and a whole lot more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shannon.
All right. Now, it's been a while since you've been on. For those who didn't see the first program that we did, could you explain what the Church and School of Wicca is and how you came to be its founders?
We can.
It's a school, a church and school that follows a spiritual path toward soul development.
Enlightenment, yeah.
Enlightenment, yes. We came to found it because when we were first meeting each other in the 1960s, there were people doing dumb stuff and thinking they were doing witchcraft. Ooh, ooh. They were doing harmful things. And the craft is not about harm. It is a spiritual path. And if people read too many comic books, they get the wrong idea. Because we are, gasp, different. And because different and dangerous both begin with D, they must be synonymous. So
witchcraft was getting to be very popular. And teenagers and others like them were going out and tipping over gravestones and doing stuff like that, just to annoy their parents and peer group, you know. And so we started out talking about witchcraft, but we very quickly decided that we should call it something different to differentiate from it. It is an earth-based religion and spirituality. And we sat around a dining table one day drinking strange fermented fluids.
Never mind.
With a group of people and tried to decide what we ought to call it. And two words were proposed, Wicca, the male, and Wiki, the female. And I personally voted for the female, but the rest of the group all voted solidly for the male noun.
W-I-C-C-A.
And so we went with Wicca. Right. And we started to advertise in several magazines.
This is a path that is not a dominator orientation. There's no head honcho anywhere passing down orders from Mount Olympus or somewhere. It is a partnership thing where people say, I follow this path and I know this for experience and I know certain things happen, and what's your path? So people pool information and think about things and get some patterns to enunciate some patterns. And there is no middleman. There is no middleman and no dominator. So we are autonomous and we develop each in our own path, in our own direction. And as long as it harms nobody, and as I can say this as a recovering Baptist, it is a healing path of healing and growth.
And when we say, and it harm none, we mean including yourself. So if you think about going out and taking drugs or something, quite apart from the drugs harming you, you'll be doing something illegal which could cause you lots of other trouble.
On a different level of
Don't
life.
do that, you know.
Yeah, don't do dumb stuff. There's enough pain coming in from outside.
All right. Now, since the inception of the Church and School of Wicca in the 1960s, what are some of the major changes that you've observed within Wicca?
The thing that is annoying us the most, I think, is that people are trying to make it politically correct. They're trying to make it acceptable to everybody out there, including all the followers of Abrahamic religions and stuff like that. And we don't want to be.
Politically, I've seen normal. And I don't want to be that. I want to follow my own path, not leaning on anybody, not stepping on anybody's foot, but just following my path. So just keep out of my way. We pay taxes too.
There's a whole spectrum within Wicca that range from people who are out there making love in pastures all the way through just the spiritual groups, and over here on the left, which we try to ignore, is all these politically correct, what we call Christo-pagans.
Oh dear. Now, it's important to distinguish semantically between a spiritual path and the practice of magic, because the spiritual path leads me, at least, in this direction, and magic and hoodoos are on the temporal plane, so I don't have to be a witch or a Wiccan to do hoodoos. I can be anything. But it's important not to talk about magic and call it witchcraft, because they are separate things.
Okay. Now, what kind of training does the School of Wicca offer to its students?
We run a correspondence course. In fact, we have 12 different correspondence courses, I think, at last count. And it takes something over a year to go through the various steps to be ready to be able to call yourself a Wiccan. Okay. Lots of people seem to think that they can pick up a book and read it and be a Wiccan. That's not true. It's a matter of changing the head, and that takes time. There's a lot of schools on the web who are selling witchcraft courses that are instant gratification courses. There are some very good ones that are not instant gratification courses too, but we think it's not instant gratification. It has to take time, it has to go in, you have to learn it for yourself. And we say very clearly, spiritual knowledge is not learnt from books or from correspondence courses. You have to discover it and understand it in yourself.
Okay. And that is a thing that takes time. This culture is so saturated in a certain cluster of ideas about dominators, and one person leaning on another and giving orders, and the other person following orders, that it takes a year to wrench the head around and start thinking in a different way, and saying, when these cultural claims come up, and saying, wait a minute, just take your bullying ways back, because I'm going to follow my path.
Now, if somebody took your course, like an introductory course, and they take it for the year or whatever, and they decide at the end of it that maybe Wicca is not for them, I mean, is that still okay?
Sure.
It's perfectly all right. I could study
Hindu?
I could study Shiite terrorism if I wanted to. All the rest of my life, it wouldn't make me a Shiite terrorist.
Right.
I could say that's interesting and then go on to the next topic and explore something else.
Okay. All right. Now, you both travel a good bit, and have you noticed any difference between practitioners of Wicca in the UK or anywhere else that you've gone and here in America? In other words, is there a slightly different way of understanding Wicca overseas? Or is the Wiccan community pretty much the same both here and abroad?
Well, that's a difficult question, because you've got to realize we have a whole spectrum of people here in the States. Okay, I think there's one noticeable difference between here in Canada and in England, and that is the Wiccans drink.
A lot in those nations.
But anyway, No, they're all looking at the same kind of thing. And the basic precept comes to "and it harm none," and right after that, progressive reincarnation, where you progress through reincarnation, you never go back. It's not like the Hindu transmigration, transubstantiation.
Transmigration means if you do a naughty thing, you might come back as a mouse or a rat or something. I was going to say something immortal. What was it? Oh, no, I've forgotten it. Heck. Oh, wait till you're old and pitiful. You'll see how it is. If we were all to stand in a row, all of us, from every nation, from every spiritual path, and if each one of us had a compass in our hands, all those compasses would still point to north. We are all groping for reality. We are all shedding our tears. We are all exploring and stubbing our toe on stuff, but we're all pointing to north. All our compasses are pointing to north. That's immortal. Oh, and progressive reincarnation is an important thing that's healing my life. And what we've been taught to call death, and be afraid and trembling and call for a middleman to help us through it, death is actually more accurately labeled graduation. Graduation to the next level. And I find that a very healing thought, although it's dangerous to some people.
And that's, progressive reincarnation is great. If you have parents who have a young child that's died or something like that, you can talk to them about the fact that she's probably completed her assignment here or his and has gone on and will come back. You know, and people who are have some disease, we say very clearly that once you've experienced this, you won't have to experience it again, because this is like taking a term paper, and the term paper isn't just arbitrary nastiness that's been dumped on you. It's a term paper. It's for you to learn, and you can reject learning that. But if you reject learning it, then next time around you're going to have to do it.
Okay. What do you feel happens in the case of a suicide?
That's like playing hooky. Suicide is like playing hooky. Yes, you can do it, but you're going to have to do those assignments one time or another, and until you get them done, you cannot really move on to higher assignments.
Okay. Now, what is the role of deity or deities in your particular Wiccan path?
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Right. There is something.
You just ruined it.
There is something beyond.
Okay.
We have to strive toward it.
Okay.
Everybody thinks about the great question mark in the sky, you know. That's the Unitarian thing, you know. Mm-hmm. When the Unitarians move to town, they burn a question mark on them.
Yeah.
So we don't know what started all this, whether it had to be started or what. We don't know whether this universe is the first or the 100th or the 1000th universe, whether there were test universes before this one. And that gets us to the business of mythos versus logos. In other words, when you think about the Big Bang, you can go back towards that as being a start point. And Hawkins says he can get to 10 to the minus 43 seconds, and then he can't go any further. But the other people, we included, the Kabbalists, say, but now what you've got to do is you've got to go the other side of that and start it from way back when and bring it up to that.
Up to the Big Bang.
Because all of the equations, all of the mathematics, all of the particles, and all of that physics had to exist before the Big Bang. And so that's the mythos. That's where you need the mythos. And so you need both halves of the brain, the logos, the left-hand logical side, and the mythos, the right-hand side. And you can't get along with half a brain. Okay, so you need both. And even St. Augustine said of the Christian Bible, if something in the Bible doesn't compute from the natural world, then think of it as a myth. And the problem we have today is the literalists,
Right.
who take that and say that's the fact, And the young earth people and people like that who say everything was born 4,000 some odd years ago.
From a Shazam.
And we say to them, well, if that's true and your deity put all this fake stuff in to make us think it was really 5 billion years ago or something, he created a great lie. And you really want a hypocritical deity like that?
I know I don't. And deities. There are plenty of Wiccans and pagans who set up little altars, and they have God figures, God and Goddess figures, to help them focus on one aspect of life or another. Those are deities made by humans, and they're really Jungian archetypes or something. They're not. I don't see them as something that's going to a great mentality that's going to come in and help me get through my life. They're just a focus for attention, or they're a psycho store. They can store my energy or my intent for some purpose, but I don't consider them a holy thing.
Right. So you're saying it's
There are
not
two different
necessarily
sorts.
a literalistic belief in deities. It's more
They're
archetypal.
just code words for whatever.
You've got two levels.
Okay.
You've got the mythos, and then you've got the logical one that talks about the ancient gods and goddesses that you can store, you can imagine, and you can put energy into. The best example is the Japanese Hotai figure. Outside the cottage in Japan, you come in, you pat him on the head and rub him on the belly, put nice happy energy in, and when things go awry in the house, Mama-san boils up a pot of water and tips it over Hotai, and that's supposed to release the happy energy and bring balance back to the house. And that's what we think of as all these gods and goddesses. So in Wicca you have a pantheon of gods and goddesses which we make, which we store our type of energy in, and then something beyond that. Is that in 50 words or less?
Oh yeah, that works.
If I want something, or if I want to deal with higher beings, those are what I call guides and elder ones. They are not jujus. They are people like me, only more advanced perhaps, and they are discarnate. So they have access to more information than I have. And if I need something, I can meditate and my guide will let me have what I need. Not necessarily what I want, but what I need. And so I meditate. It's the flip side of that coin that a lot of people call prayer. I don't want to sit on Santa's knee in the mall and yammer about my little list of goodies that I want. I meditate and receive information from the guide. And because my intent is good, is wholesome, is upward, the guide will give me only good things. That's what we call the law of attraction. I'm not interested in malicious or destructive activities. I'm interested in getting up and getting on with things, and so the guide knows that, and what I get is benevolent and helpful. And the guides are there, and the elder ones are there at a higher level, and that's the closest I'm going to get to a God at this level of my development. Not because I'm evil, but because I'm not ripe yet enough to talk to the God.
If you think of Jehovah as the ex-god of a volcano, you can see that that was a god that people in ancient times made. That was a figure that allowed them to think about the volcano. Okay, and pray to the volcano and say, hey volcano, don't kill us. And then if you think of Elohim, Elohim was a god that is equal to Jehovah in the Bible, but has an entirely different aspect. He's one you can negotiate with and talk to, and so you've got two levels of God there right off the beginning.
Elohim is plural.
Right.
Oh yeah, right.
Plural. Don't you speak Hebrew? You know that the I am word is the plural form. Cherubim, seraphim.
And Elohim.
Elohim, a bunch of them.
Yes. And that is often brought up, and biblical scholars some are still wondering why the plural reference.
But why keep working it over and over? I've got a basket of ironing to do. I can't worry about whether Elohim are plural or interested in me.
It's that literalist thing that you get trapped in all the time.
Mm-hmm. Taking a mythos as literal.
Yeah, taking a mythos and making it literal. It isn't. Yeah. It's a mythos.
I can't insist that Goldilocks actually slept in the bear's bed.
We live, by the way, on a Goldilocks planet. You understand that. It's not too hot, not too cold, just right.
All right.
For us. And I think if there are alien intelligences out there, as St. Carl Sagan hoped, if they are out there, they've got this planet under quarantine.
Especially nowadays.
Oh, look around you.
Well, what obstacles have you encountered since opening the Church and School of Wicca?
Well, it used to be the Christians.
Okay. Frightened people.
Frightened people. Bombs at hotels, shots through the window. At one hotel, they took a tube and connected it up to the chlorine tanks for the pool and fed it into Sybil Leek's window to see if they could kill her.
Yes.
They didn't. They gave her a bad throat for the rest of her life. But then they found out that every time they did something like that, we got more advertising. So they gave that up. So nowadays, it's other pagans.
It's other pagans
who don't agree with our path. And we say, fine, don't agree with our path. We don't necessarily agree with your path either, but we can still be friends and discuss our differences in a logical way.
Yes, let's meet at a Pagan Pride Day or something and talk about why I believe this and why you believe that, and maybe we can find consensus or something we can share. Something we can share. We're all lurching along, trying to get through life, and there are things certainly that we have in common.
And of course, we had problems with the IRS because Jesse Helms, who was the senator from North Carolina where we were, was very uptight about having witches in his state. And so the IRS investigated us, and later on we had a bunch of prisoners who wanted to burn candles and make metal knives and stuff like that in prison in Virginia, and that got us into the 4th District Federal Court, Appeals Court, where they finally said, yes, this is a religion, and those prisoners can have anything any other religion can have. In other words, they didn't say they could have a sharpened knife or candles and matches or stuff.
Matches, and, yeah. But whatever any other religion has, come on, let's lighten up and see that the craft Wicca gets it too.
Sure.
And recently, of course, we got the pentacle.
Pentacle Quest.
Right.
Yes.
On the gravestone in Arlington.
I was glad to see that.
And now we're beginning to work on trying to get the cross off the other side of that gravestone. Because all the gravestones in Arlington have a cross on one side, whether they have Mohammedan or Jewish or whatever on the other side.
Oh my. I did not know that.
It's to make them tidy, make them match.
Well, another thing people don't realize is that during that mess, they fined the White House $250,000 for religious discrimination.
They found an email from the White House that clearly demonstrated religious discrimination in the top levels in the Oval Office.
Well, didn't Bush issue a statement saying, well, it's not like it's a real religion?
That's just about it. Thing. Yes. And the White House paid $250,000.
Barry Lynn got a nice contribution to Americans
United for separation of church and state. And I'm saying, wahoo! It's high time. It can be instructive.
Okay. And this may be a good point to ask. What are some of the primary differences between Wicca and the various Abrahamic religions?
Let me talk about the terms used by Riane Eisler in her works, E-I-S-L-E-R. She talks about dominator mindset versus a partnership mindset. Of course, in the dominator mindset, there's a juju at the top of the pyramid, whether that juju be divine or human, handing down orders and saying, this is how it is, march to my command. And the partnership mindset says, hey, we could have something in common, let's find out what it is, and let's all choose a goal and work toward it together with our tremendous talent pool. That's what the craft is about, in my mind.
Okay. And
But of course, the whole business of deity, looking at deity is entirely different than the Abrahamic religions. But interestingly enough, it's not different than the Kabbalists look. If you talk to Kabbalists, you'll find that they're thinking about Ein Sof and that is very similar to the way we do it.
now you mentioned in passing the craft, and I wanted to ask, why is Wicca often referred to as the craft? Most other belief systems don't refer to their specific beliefs or practices as a craft, so why this term?
That's because they're religions of the book. Mm-hmm. We're not a religion of the book. We're a religion of earth, the land, nature, and in other words, in order to practice the religion, you have to get in tune with all of that. And you don't do that through books.
Right.
And that's where we come to calling it a craft.
Okay.
Just like pottery or any other.
So it's an ongoing sort of a thing that people are learning, and it evolves as it goes along.
Right.
We're constantly learning. Think of the old lady on the edge of the hamlet who was the custodian of knowledge for her village. Before there were nice pharmacies on the corner and nice grocery stores and stuff, she was the custodian of the knowledge. She knew herbs, she knew counseling, she knew all kinds of healing and stuff. She had wisdom, and all those things were crafts, and she was the person responsible for keeping them for the next generation.
There's a lot of mythos out there associated with the fact that supposedly those were the women who were burned during the burning times, but it's not true. The women who were burnt were mainly lying-in maids, wet nurses.
The wet nurses.
That 80% of the women who were burnt were wet nurses.
That's because of such staggering infant mortality. They didn't know anything about prenatal development, about nutrition, about hygiene, so babies died, and the lying-in maid was the handiest target because often she supported herself because there was no family network behind her. There was no one to speak for her, and there she was
had lost
alone.
her baby or something, you know.
And so she was the target of opportunity.
What is some advice you'd like to impart to people who have decided to become Wiccans, or they're starting to seriously explore Wicca, but they're still really new to it? Where does a beginner start?
Well, you can start at our website.
Okay.
And that way you can learn the basics. But we'll rapidly try to put you in touch with groups in your area. And you can go to festivals, or you can go to Pagan Pride Days like tomorrow, right here. And next weekend we'll be in Springfield, Missouri. And I'm sorry, I don't know when your program is going out.
It'll be about 1 month.
It'll be
Oh
about
boy,
a month.
oh
so,
boy.
Well, last month there was one in Springfield.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to come around to the close of the show, but as we close it up, I'd like to ask each of you, in condensed format, could you just kind of sum up some of your personal core beliefs that you've taken away as Wiccans, or just in general as human beings? Could you sum up kind of in a simple and easy to understand manner what it is that you personally believe? What is important to you in life? How
brief an answer do you want?
I know it's a huge question, but
Yes.
We'll try to condense.
Live ethically, live responsibly, harm none. Do what you can to heal the planet. It's the last planet we've got left. Don't step on anybody else. Be true to yourself. Those who don't like it can look the other way and show me a better path. Show me a better path, and maybe I'll pay attention.
Okay.
Be careful when you're investigating. There's a lot of trash out there. Don't buy any books from Llewellyn. There's a lot of books written by somebody who's had some single experience, and that's not the place to go. You need to go to people who've had lots of experiences. We've had 60,000 students, and we've had I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of circles and groups and healings we've done. but we've had the experience and we've got the scars, and so
Yeah.
we can help.
Shed your own tears. We have shed ours.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the
Oh,
show
Shannon,
again.
it is our
gonna dance?
pleasure.
Thanks.
It is our pleasure.
We can, and why don't I go ahead and close out the show?
Right.
And then we'll come back and we'll have a little dance. All right. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Shannon Caine. This is the Caine Interviews. That's Gavin and Yvonne Frost. They're the founders and heads of the Church and School of Wicca. Thank you so much for checking out the show today. And stay tuned to Channel 18 for more great programming. Catch you next time around.